Hey everyone, last time we were here, we were able to do some sword swinging and you stop when you do it, you can be idle and swing. And now, what would a Zelda-like be without a pot to break? So, let's do that next. Let's get an enemy pot in there and break it. So, I linked the resource that I'm going to use, but we're going to go through the order of operations again, just solidify this. We're going to do the resources first. We're going to add an image. It's going to be called pot, PNG. I did not size it accordingly, so we'll have to scale it again, but you'll want to make yours the right size first. It's going to be 5 in the horizontal, and then update. And I'm going to add a folder. I'm going to call it objects, and then we're just going to put the pot in the object folder, just to keep our hierarchy organized. So the next order of operation is we then jump to animations, and we're going to add an animation. We're going to call it pot, and we are going to choose the resource we want it to be from the object's pot sprite sheet, and we're going to hit OK. Going to hit OK again, and then we get an automatic motion, direction, and frame. So we want to first, on the animation list of the pot, we want to set it to the floor. Because remember, we want our pivot point at the bottom. Then we're going to go to the motion, and we're just going to call it idle. Just the pot's doing nothing. And we've got a direction, but we've only have one direction for the pot. So I'm just going to put the only, for only direction. And then for the frame, we want it to be that. And that's just going to be the idle. It's all it's going to be. We want to click on the motion part, just make sure it's not looping. That's good. And then we're going to control paste. And then we're going to call this breaking or break. And then we're going to, or let's be specific. Let's call it pot break. There we go. And then we're going to go to only direction. And the first frame is going to be the breaking part. And then we're going to do it about 6, just like we have been doing. We're going to copy paste, copy paste, copy paste. And now we have this, turn these off here. We have this cool little breaking effect. So the one thing is that we haven't set up the hitbox again. I should have set up the hitbox here first, but luckily we don't need the hitboxes for these ones. So let's set up the hitboxes real quick. We got our wall detection, which is what the player is going to be able to walk through it, if any. So we'll kind of give it a little leeway on the top, but it's going to be nothing on the bottom and sides. And then let's go to the collision detection. The collision detection is going to be where the sword hit actually lands on. So that the red attack detection, is when it hits the purple area, it's going to cause the trigger to break it. So then we'll go into the pot break one, and we actually don't need wall or collision detection. Once you break it, you can just walk right through it, and that way it feels like there's no delay or anything. So we're going to delete the wall of the collision. We're going to delete the collision detection. And then one thing I do want to point out is we're not going to do it on this, but if you do have a sound effect for braking, you can play a sound effect from at any point in these frames. So say you wanted it a little delayed, you could play it on this frame. But if you wanted to play it on the first frame braking, you can play it and it break as it goes through this animation, which is really cool. All right, so we got our animations done. The next order of operations is we're going to create an object out of these animations and motions. So let's add an object, and we're going to just call it pot, and we're going to select the pot animation so that we can gain all those motions from it. And then we are going to select what group we want it to be in. Now, I'm going to select enemy group, and I'll show you why here in a second. It really doesn't matter because you can actually add it to be an enemy group as well, but so that everything that the enemy group and the player group can do, can hit it. So you could have enemies that break the pots. But in this case, I just want the player to break the pot, and I'm just going to do it simply by saying it's an enemy. And I'll show you why here in a second, because, well, yeah, let's set this up and I'll show you. So we got idle. The pot is going to be an idle right off the bat. It's idle, and we do want to set it. I don't think it matters because we're not controlling it, but I'll just set it just in case. The only direction of idle. And this doesn't matter because we're not inputting or anything. And there are a few things we still need to change, but let's just test this and we'll just have a learning curve. Oh, first thing we got to do is we got to place it on the scene. So then last order of operation is you go to, or the second to last order is to go to scenes, click on object, click on the pot, and we want to make sure it's on our player layer so our player can interact with it. And then we want to scale it because I didn't size it right. Okay, so now when we click play and we go to hit it, see, or actually first before we hit it, first you'll notice we do walk behind it because of the wall detection. But when our wall detection hits it, we actually are pushing it. And that is because pushing is automatic with these kind of objects. So let's have a look at the basic settings of an object. So we have the pot selected and we're on basic settings of that. And we can see that not pushed back by other objects. So we'll check that. And now let's play test. Let's walk over to that pot. Okay, we cannot push it. That is good start. Now let's attack it. Okay, it blinked. Okay, that's strange. Okay, it blinked. So now let's come back to the basic settings. And the reason it was blinking is because it has automatic settings for invincibility and for blinking during that invincibility. You can adjust the seconds so that it blinks fast or slow, or how long that invincibility is. We don't want these, so click those off, and then let's play again, and you'll notice it doesn't blink anymore. However, it's not destroying when we're hitting it. So let's see what else we need to think about here. So because we labeled it as an enemy, when the player hits its collision, it's going to take a health point because the player right here, it's max. So I'm on the player basic settings now. The max attack is 1. So the pot's health is 1. So every time we hit it, we are taking a health away, but we have no conditions for if the health is 0 to do anything. So let's go back to our action here, our action programs for the pot, and let's click add an action. And we're going to call this pot break. We're going to select the pot break, and then we're going to select the only one that we got. And then we are going to add a link to the pot break, and we're going to say the condition is when the HP is 0 of the object self. So if you're coming from RPG Maker and you've scripted, you've heard the word this, or this event ID, this map, or something like that. That's the same thing. This object self, you're talking about this object, HP is 0. So you hit OK, and then it's going to do the pot break animation. So let's test that out just to make sure. So we're going to go, it has 1 HP, so as soon as we hit it, it's going to break. But you can see the fragments are still out there. And while that might be okay to leave, you'd have to make sure that it's lower than the player. But while that might be okay, what we want to do is we want to add, actually these are red for some reason. Let's change these back to the gray. Yeah, let's change these back to the gray. Right there, okay. So we want to add an action, and we'll call this destroy. We don't need a set emotion or anything, and this one we do want to be red. And we want the runtime action to be destroy object, and we'll just hit OK, so it will destroy it. And then we want the link to go to destroy, and we want the condition to be if the motion animation played to the end. So now let's test this. And now you come to your pot, you break it, and it disappears. And now the last thing to do is go to this pot here, copy paste. It's to add a lot of pots. Got to get some by the house too. And now let's play test. And one way you can, or one thing to test too, is we gave no collision on the break. So let's see if we walk right through it as soon as we break it. Well, we kind of don't, and maybe that is because, it's probably because the delay when you're swinging, you can't start moving fast enough. Who knows? All I know is we get to break some pots now. So that's it for this. You got breakable pots, and we'll see what we're going to do next. All right.